Hello and welcome to today's video. I'm Asmita, your IELTS mentor here at Vedantu. And stop! You need to stop making these very common mistakes in the IELTS. These mistakes affect you when you speak, they affect you when you write, they take away from your overall score. And these mistakes are the reason why you're still stuck in that 5-6 band. Alright, so I'm going to help you out with some really common mistakes. We are going to look at 5 different kinds of mistakes today. But this is not an exhaustive list. I will bring more of such sessions for you if you like this video, and if I get a good response for this video, I will make sure to bring a session like this at least once every week, because this is the easiest way to stop, check yourself and figure out where you're going wrong. Okay, so let's get started quickly with the first mistake, which is the problem. Now, this actually is, or I'd like to call it, an article issue, because for some reason, Indians have the habit of not using articles when they speak. All right, and not using articles is like a big red flag, the biggest indicator that somebody is not fluent in the English language. What are our 3 articles? Well, first of all, articles can be divided into 2 categories. We have our indefinite and we have our definite articles, right? Indefinite articles, we have a, an. Definite, we just have the. Now, one thing that you need to remember about a, an is that a and an can be used as a substitute for one, like one in number. Okay, so if you have a something or an something, that means you only have that in the quantity 1. You only have one of that thing. All right, so by this logic, going by this logic, this can only be used, or indefinite articles can only be used with singular countable nouns. Now just remember this for now. We will get into what countable and uncountable nouns are very soon. But just remember that indefinite article can only be used with singular countable nouns. I'm sure you all know at this point that used with consonant sounds and used with vowel sounds. Focus on sound and not the letter. Okay. Now, when it comes to definite article, we have the. The can be used with both singular and plural nouns. Broadly speaking, we use the for things that have already been specified or that are so general that everybody knows about it. For example, the moon or the ocean. All right, and specific or specified in the sense that you've already mentioned it or spoken about it in a conversation, or whoever you're talking to knows the context and knows what you're talking about. For example, I can say there is a dog barking in the street the first time I talk about that dog. But then if that dog has now become a part of conversation because you sort of interact with that dog every other day, then you can say, you know, the dog, I met the dog today, he was wagging his tail, I fed the dog some biscuits today. We switch from a dog to the dog once we have established which dog we are talking about. Does that make sense? All right. Now, the problem, the mistake lies with not knowing when to use the and when not to use the. Now, because we have a restriction when it comes to indefinite articles, we know that we can only use them with singular countable nouns, and a and an are both substitutes for one in number. So that's an easy way for us to figure out whether or not we can use a or an somewhere. But when it comes to the, since it's free for all, we can use it with everything. We really don't know when not to use it. Now, the number one thing that you should know when not to use it is with, so I'll just write that down here, is with proper nouns, right? So we never say the Asmita is taking class today, right? But that's where the problem also lies, because there are some proper nouns with which we use the. We don't say the India, the China, or the India and the Pakistan are fighting. We don't say that. But there are some countries that have words like United or Kingdom or Emirates in their name, and so we have to use the with their names, right? So there are some exceptions to the rule, and knowing these exceptions will help us not make the mistake. Okay, so we're just gonna dive into these rules a little bit. Okay, and I'm not going to give you a list of rules that you should remember, because that's not a good way to remember rules. What we're going to do is we're going to answer some questions. And as we answer each question, we're going to figure out, okay, that's the rule, that's what we need to remember. Okay, let's start with the first one. So you see a word here in brackets. You need to tell me if we have to use the along with it, or do we use it without the when we add that word to the blank. Okay. The main advantage of blank is that it gives us access to information from all over the world. Quickly answer the question for me. Okay, the answer here is the main advantage of the internet. Okay, now here's a pronunciation tip. Whenever we use the word the before a word that starts with a vowel sound, the pronunciation changes to the internet. Okay, so the main advantage of the internet is that it gives us access to information from all over the world. What is the rule here? The rule here is that whenever we have something that is only one of its kind in the world, we use the along with it. For example, if we can list down some examples, we have the internet, we have the environment, okay, the sun, the moon, all of that. When there's only one of its kind in the world, we use the. This also applies to names of monuments. For example, we can say the Taj Mahal, even though it is a proper noun. Okay, because it's one of its kind in the world, we use the along with it. Applies to everything, even something as intangible as the internet. Okay, we will use the along with it. Next question. Life in blank is very different from life in my country. Now here we have two possible words that we can put in the blank here. Depending upon which name you're using for the country that you're referring to, you will use the with one, you will not use the with one. Okay, so here the answer is simple. Life in, if you're using America, it's just America, because like India, China, France, we don't use the with names of countries, because in general we need to remember that we do not use the with proper nouns. But what did I tell you? There are exceptions. So this is your exception to the rule. Whenever you have United Kingdom, Emirates, Republic, words like this in the name of a country, then you add the before it. So if you're saying America, you just say America. But if you're saying USA, you have to say, did I not change the color? Oops. Okay, 1 second. The USA, the UK. I'm going to England. I'm going to the UK. All right. I'm going to the UAE, or the Dominican Republic. All right, so these are all exceptions to the general rule. I hope that is clear, not very hard to follow. Next, the graph shows that blank increase occurred in 1998, a sentence that is very useful when it comes to your writing task, because that's where you interpret, analyze information and summarize it. So here, if you're talking about degrees of adjectives, I hope you remember your different degrees of adjectives. If you don't, that's okay. A quick refresher. So adjectives sometimes have 3 degrees. Okay, you have the positive degree, comparative degree, and superlative degree. Bear in mind, we are talking about adjectives, right? So the positive degree is when you're just stating a quality of something. Adjective describes a noun, so whatever noun you pick, you're just talking about a quality it has. Okay, so for example, the scenery is beautiful, or lovely. Okay. The comparative degree comes in when we're comparing two nouns with each other and we're saying one is better than the other. Okay. We're comparing two nouns. We're using the same quality to compare and we're saying one is better than the other. So we can say more beautiful. In case of longer words, we add the word. Hope you remember this. We add the word more. Okay. But if it's a one syllable word or a shorter word, lovelier. Okay. More beautiful, lovelier. And then we have the superlative degree where we compare three or more nouns. Okay. Three or more nouns and we are simply stating which one is the best out of all. Okay. So here, what will we say? Most beautiful or loveliest. Okay. So for the superlative degree, we add most, just like we added more for the comparative degree. And for shorter words, we add ER in the comparative degree and EST in the superlative degree. How do we decide if we use more, most, or we add ER or EST? It all comes down to syllables. You have 3 syllable, 4 syllable words, then you use more and most. Shorter words, 1 syllable, 2 syllable, you can add ER or EST. That's the general rule. There might be some exceptions, but it's a good rule to keep in mind. Okay. If you are confused about how to tell which word has how many syllables, an easy way to do that is to just clap. You can break the word down into how many clappable units. Beautiful. Beautiful. 3 units, 3 syllables. Lovely. Lovely. Break it down into 2 clappable units, 2 syllables. See, whenever we're trying to learn something, the easiest way to do it is to dumb it down as much as possible. So don't feel embarrassed to learn like a 6-year-old or a 7-year-old. That's the best way to go about something. Okay. So here, that's a quick refresher on the degree of adjectives. Now, why is that relevant? That is relevant because here, when you're comparing data points, you need to either talk about 2 different things or you need to say this is the most or the best or the worst or the highest or the lowest, right? In this case, what are we talking about? Greatest. And we're talking about the superlative degree because we're saying the graph shows that the greatest increase occurred in 1998. 1998 single-handedly had the greatest increase out of all the years, okay? So we're talking about all the years and we're saying 1998 greatest. EST over here tells us it's the superlative degree. And a general rule to remember is that whenever we're using an adjective in its superlative degree, we have to add the before it. Okay? So always use the before superlatives. That's our rule. Okay? So here what will we say? The graph shows that the greatest increase occurred in 1998. Hope that's easy for you to remember. Next, your hairstyle is blank as mine. Here, a very simple rule. Whenever you have the word same and you're using the phrase the same as to compare two things, you're using the phrase the same as. Just remember, the will always be present. A lot of people make this mistake where they forget about the. So your hairstyle is the same as mine. You will not say your hairstyle is same as mine, which is a mistake that a lot of people make. So always use the when it comes to the phrase the same as. Just remember this entire chunk like one word. The same as, the same as, the same as. Your hairstyle is the same as mine. Okay? Alright, those were our rules for the and a quick refresher on our degrees of adjectives. Now moving on to our second most common mistake. It's, if you can tell, singular, singular, plural, plural. Essentially, that means we need to be careful about subject, verb, agreement, also known as concord. Now, the biggest confusion here for first-time English learners is that whenever we have a noun and we add s to it, that becomes a plural noun, right? But when we have a verb and we add s to its base form, that's a singular verb. So let me demonstrate that with an example to make it more intuitive. The boy sings versus the boys sing. All right. So here, with no s and with s, these are both singular. Boy being the noun and sings being the verb. And over here, with s and without s, these are both plural, right? So just remember verb with s, plural, singular, see, and noun with s, plural. Noun with s, plural, verb with s, singular. So they're kind of the opposite when it comes to this, and we just need to be mindful. What is the rule of subject-verb agreement? Whenever we have a singular noun, it needs to have a singular verb, and this could also be a pronoun. Okay, that because we're talking about the subject, and the subject of a sentence can be a noun or a pronoun. So whenever we have a noun or a pronoun that's singular, it takes a singular verb. If it's plural, it takes a plural verb. The verb always needs to agree with our subject. Very common mistake. We're going to see through some examples what the common mistakes are. So, and we're also going to learn some rules along the way, along with these questions and examples. Okay, so number one, there are a lot of, choose which word needs to go here in my class. There are a lot of persons or people in my class. Okay, so now the correct answer here is people. What is the rule here? It's never persons, it's always people. We use person as a singular word. Okay, that's the first thing. The second thing here is whenever we have the word or the phrase a lot of, whenever we have a lot of, we always need to make sure that we have a plural noun along with it. Okay, so a lot of people, because logically speaking, a lot of means obviously more than one. So it cannot be singular, it has to be plural. Okay. Second, I enjoyed studying mathematics a lot. I found blank very interesting. What are we talking about? First thing, when it comes to subject-verb agreement, you either have to fill in the subject or the verb. Okay. So either the subject or the verb will be given to you. And when you're framing your own sentences, you are not filling in anything. In this practice exercise, I'm making you fill stuff in, but when you're forming your own sentences, you're not filling in anything. So depending upon what you're saying, recognize the subject you're using and then make sure that the verb agrees with it. Or if you're talking about an activity, if that's your focus, make sure that you're using the correct form of the verb. Verb tends to be the most confusing part of speech, because not only is it very versatile, there are helping verbs, there are main verbs, it changes according to the tense, it changes according to the subject, and also a lot of times there are some verbs that don't behave like verbs in a sentence. We're going to take a look at that also a little later in this session. So make sure you're always on the lookout and you know that the verb here is for this subject, and if this verb is for this subject, I need to make sure they agree with each other. Okay, here what are we going to do? First, we're going to recognize what our subject is. Okay, now here we are referring back to our main subject. This is a substitute for the subject. Okay, there's no verb issue here. Now what is our subject? I enjoyed studying mathematics a lot. I found blank very interesting. Basically, what is the person trying to say? I found mathematics or math very interesting. Okay. Now here the problem is mathematics as a subject sounds like it is plural. Sounds like a plural. Also, it ends with S, right? But Actually, all these subject names are always treated as singular nouns. Economics, mathematics, okay? I like studying politics. Even in that case, it will be treated like a singular noun. So here mathematics is singular. So here there's no verb issue. We are just using it or them as these are pronouns. We're using them to substitute the word mathematics. And to substitute the word mathematics, we have to correctly decide whether we need to substitute it with a singular pronoun or a plural pronoun. Because we have established now that mathematics is singular, what is going to be our correct answer? Our correct answer is, it. Okay, I found it very interesting. I enjoyed studying mathematics. I found it very interesting. Okay, if I want to add a verb here, for example, pay attention. I'm talking about mathematics. So I'm saying mathematics blank and interesting subject. Tell me what verb is going to go in here. Mathematics are an interesting subject or mathematics is an interesting subject? Because we just established that mathematics is singular, over here we're always going to put is. Mathematics is an interesting subject. All right, is that clear? Moving on to number 3, we've reached here. How many classes or class do you have today? Okay, it is a question. Okay, and the word that's going to give away whether or not you need to use a singular or a plural is many. Okay, just like I told you, apply logic. Don't get into the nitty-gritties of parts of speech. Just apply logic. A lot of, by definition, means more than one. So many also, logically, by definition, means more than one. If you're talking about just one thing, we cannot use the word many. Okay, so if we are using the word many, that means there's going to be more than one. More than one means plural, so we're going to use the word classes over here. How many classes do you have today? All right, next question. The news is or are very depressing. Same logic that we used with mathematics. Even though it ends with S, it is a singular noun, so the news is very depressing. Okay, the number of women studying science increased dramatically last year. Okay, here very general rule, but first I'm going to tell you the logic, then I will ask you to memorize the rule. The logic here is we are saying the number of women, the amount of women studying a particular subject has increased. So obviously, even if it was 1, it has gone from 1 to 2. The number has gone up. If we go above 1, we have entered plural territory. We are no longer in the singular territory. Okay, so the number of women studying science increased dramatically last year. Just remember, whenever you have the phrase the number of, as a rule, whatever you put after it is going to be plural. The number of will always take a plural noun after it. That is a rule. Okay, next, the blank given by the tour guide, blank not very helpful. Now here this is to confuse you a little bit, and this question also acts as a bridge to the next topic that I want to introduce you to, which I referenced early in the session. Okay, first thing, you need to consider the information or informations given by the tour guide. Now if the tour guide told you a lot of things, you might think, okay, he's told me more than one thing. More than one, you just told me, means plural territory. So I'm going to go with informations. That is your thought process right now. But the problem is, information is a particular kind of noun that is uncountable. Okay, we treat it as uncountable. That means it cannot be counted. So if something cannot be counted, can it have a plural? No, it cannot have a plural. So regardless of how much information the tour guide gave you, told you 1 thing, 2 things, 5, 50 things, doesn't matter. It's always going to be information. So the information given by the tour guide, now because this is uncountable, because this is uncountable and uncountable nouns are always singular, here we cannot use were, we'll use was not very helpful. Okay, and with this I am now going to go into countable versus uncountable nouns. Just a quick refresher, this is something that you've all studied, it's not new to you, but we still need to refresh it every now and then because it's easy to forget. Now, first things first, this is related to nouns. You know how we can put nouns in different categories like proper noun, common noun, abstract noun. Okay, similarly, two ways to categorize nouns is countable and uncountable. Countable nouns, just remember, can be counted and have plural forms. Okay, now the thing is, uncountable nouns can also be counted, but not without the help of countable nouns. Once we look at examples, this will make sense to you. So here we can say cannot be counted without countable nouns and don't have plural form. So these are two things that you need to remember to distinguish between these. Now if I give you examples, countable nouns, very common things that you see around yourself are mostly countable, but I'm going to give you examples in a way that I'll give you its uncountable counterpart also. So for example, bottle, countable. Can you make its plural form? Bottles. Yes, that's something we hear commonly. So 1 bottle, 2 bottles, 3 bottles, 5 bottles. Okay. Next thing, minute. 5 minutes, 10 minutes can be counted. Okay, this is a countable noun. And let me give you another example that I can give you a counterpart for. Peace. Not the peace that the world requires right now, but peace. Okay, a part of something. So piece, 1 piece, popular anime, 5 pieces, 1000 pieces. Okay, so now if we try to find the uncountable counterparts for these, what do you put in a bottle? What can you put in a bottle? Any kind of liquid. So let's just go with water. Water. Can we say 1 water, 2 waters, 5 waters, please? No, we don't say that, right? So water, uncountable. Minute. What is minute? It helps you keep time. So time. Okay. Now time can sometimes be countable, sometimes uncountable, but right now we cannot say 5. We can say 5 times. You've done this 5 times. That's a different usage. But in general, we consider time overall as uncountable. And peace. So here, advice. Giving you advice. Advices. I gave you 5 advices. No, I just gave you advice. Regardless of how many things I told you, I just gave you advice. Now, the reason why I use these examples is now you can make that connection where you can use bottles to count water. 3 bottles of water. Okay? You can use minutes to keep time. 7 minutes, 10 minutes. Okay? And you can use piece to count advice. Gave me a good piece of advice. Okay? Pieces of advice given by him is what I followed. Okay? Whatever it is, now you know what I mean by these can be counted, but you need to use a countable noun to count them. Other very common examples of uncountable nouns are kitchen items. Okay, rice, wheat, tea, coffee, sugar. These things that are too small, maybe their grains are really small, or they come in a liquid state. You cannot isolate a drop and start counting how many drops make up the liquid. So we treat them as uncountable, but we can always measure them using a countable noun like milliliters or liters or bags of rice, plates of rice, bowls of rice. Okay, so we can always use countable nouns to count uncountable nouns. Just remember that using the plural form of uncountable nouns very easily gives away the fact that you are not a fluent English speaker. So saying informations instead of information, furnitures, we have a lot of furnitures. No, we have some good pieces of furniture. Okay, so you can make the countable plural and put off and then the uncountable noun if you want to say that you have more than one of an uncountable noun. All right. Now, knowing this difference, there are a few words that we can use with countable but not with uncountable nouns, and few words that we can use with uncountable and not with countable nouns. These are words that help us tell the quantity of something but not in exact terms. Okay, so if we don't know the exact quantity of something but we still want to talk about how much of it is there, if it's a lot in quantity or it's less in quantity, so we have a few words that we can use, but some we can use with both, some we can only use with either countable or uncountable. So first I'll tell you the ones we can use with both. Put those in blue. Some. Okay, and I'm just going to pick two examples and use these words with them. So a very common example of uncountable nouns is money. Okay, and countable, let's use friends. Okay, so we can never say monies, or we can never say I have 3 monies. Okay, what do we use to count money? We use a currency like dollars. Okay, I have these many dollars, or pounds or rupees, whatever currency you want to use, right? So the currency is countable, but money itself is uncountable. Okay, now some we can use with both countable and uncountable nouns. I have some friends, I have some money. It means that you have not a lot, but you have a bit of it. Okay, second word that we can use with both is a lot of. I have a lot of friends, I have a lot of money. Good to go with both. Okay, so these can be used with both countable and uncountable, but there are some words that we can only use with countable. Few. I have few friends. Okay, or a few. The counterpart for that when it comes to uncountable nouns is little and a little. So you can't say I have few money, I have little friends. No, you'll say I have a few friends, I have a little money. What is the difference between few and little and a little? Just the connotation. Few and little without a means less, and a few and a little means some. Okay, so if we take a few and a little, we can substitute these with the word some. Okay, and if we just take few and little, this means not enough. Okay, not enough. Now another word that we can use only with countable nouns is many. I have many friends. I cannot say I have many money, but what I can use here is a lot of. Many essentially means a lot of. So I can use a lot of when it comes to uncountable. A word that we can use with uncountable but not with countable is much. But remember, much is either used to make negative sentences or to make questions. So I can say, I don't have much money. If I want to say I have a lot of money, I can't say I have much money. No, I will say I have a lot of money. But if I want to talk about it negatively, I will say I don't have much money. Much used with uncountable but to make negative sentences or questions. How much money do you have? But I cannot say how much friends do you have. What will I say? How many friends do you have? So here positive sentences, negative sentences and questions. You can make all three with many but only with countable. Whereas much, only negative sentences and questions, only with uncountable. If you want to say you have a lot of something, then only a lot of can be used when it comes to uncountable. Okay, so let's make a boundary here so you don't get confused. And this is essentially all you need to remember about countable and uncountable. Very rookie mistake to use few or few with uncountable nouns and little or little with countable nouns. Even worse is using many with uncountable and much with countable. Instantly your accuracy, fluency, everything goes down the drain, because a very big indicator that you do not know how to speak English properly. Okay, so this grammatical rule, please keep this in mind. You can just refer to this whenever you need to if you get confused. And the nuances, the subtle differences between few and a few, little, a little, just remember through their substitutions. A little and a few can be substituted with some, whereas few and little can be substituted with not enough. Okay, or they mean not enough. All right, so this is all you need to know about countable and uncountable nouns. Next, going to our third mistake, it's all relative. We are talking about relative pronouns. Okay, how do these come in handy? Basically, we have clause 1 and we have clause 2, and we want to put these clauses together. How can we do that? With these, what are pronouns? Pronouns, it seems. Pronouns. Okay. What do? We put these relative pronouns in the middle. The three pronouns that we need to pay attention to are that, who, and what. Okay? And we need to know when to use which. Okay? So now all three of these are used to introduce some kind of information. Okay? So if we can just remember what kind of information that is, we are never going to make a mistake. Okay? This is actually quite easy, but still, because a lot of people don't pay attention to this, they might get stuck. Once you know the rule, very easy for you. Okay? So that, who, and what, it's very obvious that who is always used for people. So whenever you're adding some kind of information about a person that you've mentioned a person, you're adding some kind of information about them, you use who. All right? Okay? The girl who is wearing a pink dress is quite beautiful. Okay? Whatever it is you want to say, to specify that that's the girl I'm talking about, I added some information about her, the color of her dress. So because I was talking about a person, I used who to add that information. Okay, very straightforward. Who, always used for people. Now next, this is where you can get a little confused. So just remember, what can be substituted with the thing that or the things that. Whenever you can substitute what with the thing that or the things that exactly, that means you have used what correctly. So again, what just adds information about something but can be used as a substitute for the thing that or the things that. Okay? And that simply adds info. Okay? About things. Now to clearly understand the difference between these two, we are going to look at examples and then it will be all clear. But one thing I want you to remember is that when it comes to what, just know that you can substitute it with the thing that, and if the sentence makes sense, that means you have used what correctly. So here we have three sentences. We have to add that, what, or who here. Okay? So first sentence, the students blank are studying EAP should see me today. What is the first thing to do? First step is to understand the extra information that you've added. Okay? The students should see me today. Okay? Just look at this, delete this part and read the sentence. The students should see me today. That's a full sentence. It makes sense, but it's not clarifying exactly which students need to see me today, right? So I'm adding that extra bit of information. Just like with the girl example, you see a girl at a party and you're like, okay, that girl is pretty. And there are a bunch of girls standing there. So your friend's like, wait, which girl are you talking about? Then I say that girl, okay, in the pink dress. So adding that extra bit of information, there are multiple ways to do it, but we can do it with who, the relative pronoun who. In this case, the students who are studying EAP should see me today. Why are we using who? Because this extra information that we are adding relates to people. Whenever we are adding extra information that relates to people, we use who. Okay, so we've used who here. Second one, this is one of the problems blank can occur when you spend too much money. We're talking about a problem, and this is one of the problems which comes up when you spend too much money. So here, let's try adding what. Okay, this is one of the problems what can occur when you spend too much money. Now, I told you you can substitute what with the thing that. So let's say the sentence with the thing that. This is one of the problems, the thing that can occur when you spend too much money. Does that make sense? No, that's not making sense. So in this case, to add the extra information, we are going to use that. This is one of the problems that can occur when you spend too much money, okay? This is one of the problems that can occur when you spend too much money. Now here, that is used to add more information, okay, what about the problems that can occur when you spend too much money, and that is the only relative pronoun you're going to use. You cannot use more than one. You cannot say this is one of the problems that what can occur. That's not correct, okay? We can only use one relative pronoun when adding information. Now here, I understand blank you mean. I understand that you mean, Now if I add that here, the sentence seems incomplete. I understand that you mean, if there was something else after this, maybe we could have used that. Who we cannot use because we are not talking directly about a person. Saying I understand something, but I'm talking about something that is understood. We're not talking about a person or their actions. So I understand what you mean. Can I substitute this with the thing that? I understand the thing that you mean. Makes sense? So in this case, what will be used? Okay, I understand what you mean. That was it for relative pronouns. Moving on to auxiliary verbs. This also means helping verbs, and basically we are going to focus on the three main kinds of helping verbs and clearly understand what the usages are. So first we have forms of to be, then we have do forms, and then we have forms. Okay, so for forms of to be, we have is, am, are, was, were, okay, and we have been and being as well. But main focus always on these because these are used to make tenses. Okay, next we have forms of do, does, and did. And forms of have, has, have, had. Okay, so here did past tense, had past tense, okay, was, were past tense. Now do and does, this is singular, this is plural, and this is also used with I. Okay, whenever you have the subject I. Here has, singular, have, plural, and also used with I. Alright. Did can be used with both singular and plural. Same thing with had, can be used with both singular and plural. Okay, now to be, is, am, are, all of these in the present. Actually, let's not mark present tense because it's obvious that whatever is not the past is then the present tense. Okay, here is singular, are plural, am is used with I. Here was singular and used with I, were is plural. Okay, so now you already know this. You might not be able to point it out as quickly as this, but these are not things that you are unaware of. You already know about this. You've studied this extensively in school. Just a quick refresher for you, and you can refer to this if you get confused. And we need to know the particular usage of these helping verbs. So now forms of to be, what are they used for? They are used to make the continuous tense, all right? Then you have forms of do. You can use these to ask question, use these to ask questions, okay? Do you know so and so person, yada yada yada, all right? And you can use them to emphasize certain information. I do know that person, right? I do know him, okay? Then we have forms of has, used to make the perfect tense, okay? So just remember their general usage. If we come across any other usage that you need to know, I will point it out as we answer these questions, okay? Now, and I will point out the common mistakes that people tend to make when we answer these questions. So first, what blank your friend like to eat? You're asking a question about something that your friend likes to eat, okay? What, will you use a form of to be or will you use a form of do? What is your friend like to eat? That doesn't make sense. We have to go with a form of do. What are we going to say? What does your friend like to eat? Okay. Now here in this case, your friend, what do your friend like to eat or what does? Obviously, this is one person. So it's singular. Because it's one person, we are going to go with does. What does your friend like to eat? And it's in the present tense, okay? You can also make the question, what did your friend like to eat? In very specific cases when you are talking about something in the past. Maybe a childhood friend and you're like, what did your friend like to eat? That's very specifically a question about the past. In that case, we can use did, okay? What blank you done today? Now, here's a trick that can make this easy for you. You know the three forms of verbs, V1, V2, V3. Okay, V1 is the base form. V2 is the past form that you make usually by adding ed, or if it's an irregular verb, you have different ways of making the simple past form. And V3 is what we call your past participle form, okay? So whenever you see the past participle form of the main verb in a sentence, you see the past participle form, you know you're going to use a form of has, have or had, okay? Because this is an indication that the question or the sentence is in the perfect tense. Okay, so here we have the word done. What blank you done today? Do, did, done. V1, V2, V3. V3 form, obviously, what have you done today? Because it's you, we use have. You is always treated like a plural. You is always treated like a plural even when we mean it in the singular way. I might be referring to one person, you. I might be referring to all of you, you. Okay, regardless of what I mean when I use you, it is going to be treated like a plural. Okay. Next, She blank learning the piano. Very easy. ing form indicating that it is in the continuous tense. So whenever we have the V3 form, we know it's in the perfect tense. Whenever we have the ing form, we know it's in the continuous tense. Continuous tense means we have to use a form of to be. Okay. She, third person, singular. So she is learning the piano. Next, they blank went to America for the holiday. Do we need a helping verb here? They went, go, went, gone. So it's not the V3, we are using the V2. It's not the ing form, we're not asking a question. If we use a form of do, another very important thing, whenever we have a form of do, we always use the base form of the verb after it. Whenever we have do, did or does, after that we can only use the base form of the verb, the V1 form of the verb, right? So here, even if we wanted to add emphasis using do, we cannot do that because the V2 form is being used, not the V1 form. If we want to use do and add emphasis, what do we have to say? They did go to America for the holiday. They did go to America. Okay, but here we have went, so we don't need a helping verb here. This sentence does not require a helping verb. Next, I blank not believe this. Okay. Whenever we make a negative sentence in the present tense, okay, we have the simple present tense and we want to make a negative sentence, we use forms of do and we just add not after it, okay? Either do or does, because those are our simple present forms. Do, does according to the subject plus not. Okay, easy rule to remember. So here we're saying I blank not believe this. Present tense, I am unable to believe this. I do not, because we have I as the subject. I do not believe this. Better way to say this for the IELTS is I don't believe this. Okay. Next, a special tool blank used to cut the aluminum cans to the correct size. Okay, now we are just talking about something that is done. Okay, here we are not using one of our three helping verbs as a helping verb. We're actually using it as a main verb. Do you see any other main verb in the sentence? Do you see any other main verb in the sentence? No, right? So we have to use one of our auxiliary or helping verbs as the main verb, okay? And we can do that with a form of to be. So a special tool is used to cut the aluminum cans to the correct size, okay? It is used, okay? Next, and that can happen. All three of these can be used as main verbs. So whenever we want to use them as main verbs, okay? Like whenever you say, I am okay, you're using a to be form as the main verb. How are you? I am okay. Okay? I have a fever. What do you have a fever? You're showing possession of something or something's happening to you. Something's inflicted you. Okay? I do my own chores. All right? Do. You are actively doing something, okay? Main verb. So you can use these as main verbs as well. When you don't have any other verb in the sentence, these helping verbs can come as the main verb too. So an example of that over here. Next, he blank not know that. Now we are making a negative sentence, okay, in the past tense. We talked about making negative sentences in the simple present tense and we said you can use do, does and a form of, you can use whichever do, does applies according to the subject and not to form a negative simple present tense sentence. Now, if you want to make a negative simple past tense sentence, then we can use did. So, if you want to make a simple past tense sentence, negative, what can we do? We can use did plus not. Okay, so he was unaware about something. He did not know that or didn't know that. One very important thing to remember here is that whenever we have any form of do, what did I say? You always use the base form of the verb. So over here again we used believe. Here, even though this sentence is in the past tense, we use the V1 form of the main verb. Did not know that. Which word here is telling us that the sentence is in the past tense? The word did. Did is telling us that the sentence is in the past tense. We do not need to change the main verb to the past tense again, okay? We don't want redundancy in our sentences. Did is already doing that job, okay? Somebody cleaned the floor. You don't have to come again and clean after them again. Do something else, okay? So did already did the job. You don't have to do it again with the main verb. You've already indicated that this sentence is in the past tense because of the use of the word did. So after that, you're going to use the V1 form, all right? Next, at last, I finished my homework. At last, I finished. It's a regular verb, okay? This is the V3 form. So at last I have finished my homework. Actually, I'll write that with blue. Okay. When blank, you going to get a new car. Now, this is asking about the time, okay? And the question itself is in the continuous tense, ing form. When blank, you going to get a new car. So because we see an ing verb here, we know we have to use a form of to be. So we can say, when are you going to get a new car? Because it's you is always treated as a plural, okay? Even if you're asking this question to one person, we will still treat you as a plural subject. Next, Stephen blank arriving on the 6 a.m. flight tomorrow. Simple, all right? So just be wary of which helping verb to use when, all right? And don't make a mistake here. A very common mistake made here is to always use, to not make is to always use the V1 form after any form of do. Any form of do, does, did, V1 form of the verb, regardless of the tense, all right? Okay, and the last thing that we're going to quickly take a look at is ing or infinitive. Now, we know that one use of the ing form of the verb is to make the continuous tense, okay? But this is when the verb is verbing. What that means is the verb is behaving like a verb. Sometimes what happens in English is that a word that we generally use as a verb appears as some other part of speech in a sentence, okay? And that could be a gerund or an infinitive. A gerund is ing form of a verb that acts like a noun, okay? And an infinitive is always, whenever you see something mentioned as to and then the V1 form of the verb, that is the infinitive form, and it's just used to mention or name an activity. Okay, used to mention or name an activity. If we take a look at two examples, I can quickly give you two examples. So, running is good for health. This over here is the subject of the sentence and the name of the activity that is good for health. What is good for health? Running is good for health. So this is a gerund. It's a gerund, okay? And if we look at this sentence, I like to run in the park. Here we have I like to run. Whenever you see to with a V1 form, that means it's an infinitive. What is it doing? It's mentioning the name of the activity that you like doing. So what is your verb? Let's also quickly recognize our verbs. Is the verb in this sentence. Like is the verb in this sentence. Okay, so now we understand the basics of gerunds and infinitives. If you're getting confused, I'll come up with more sessions for gerunds and infinitives. So do leave that in the comments if you need a detailed explanation for this. Now we're just going to quickly look at some things that you need to keep in mind, and then a few questions, and that'll be the end of our session today. Now these verbs generally come before an infinitive. Okay, so whenever you have these verbs in your sentence, you can use an infinitive after it. For example, they promised to help me. They promised to help me. All right. They decided to visit Paris. To visit, infinitive, coming after decided. So if you see any of these verbs, know that an infinitive will come after them. Not a gerund, an infinitive. And every time you see these verbs, you can pause and take a look at this list. You need to know that they come before gerunds or the ing form. Alright? For example, he avoids getting in trouble. Alright? Avoids getting in trouble. Okay? Or we can say, let's say, she likes going to work. Going. Alright? Try this out with any of these. You can do this on your own. You can make simple sentences with all of these. Just remember that after these verbs, you will always see a gerund. And after these verbs, you will always see an infinitive. Now, let's quickly answer some questions. Okay. What we're going to do here is, I'm not going to explain too much to you. I need you to pause and answer these questions, and I'll quickly give you the answer. Okay. One second, I think I skipped. Yeah. Pause. Okay. I'm going to give you the answers now. When I was a child, we couldn't afford buying new textbooks. I was 13 when I first learned how to skate. The children spent a long time choosing the best present for their mother. My parents have promised to help me buy a car when I graduate. Keep stirring the soup so that it doesn't stick to the bottom of the pan. Our teacher suggested having a barbecue on the last day of the term. So, instead of trying and memorizing, although that's a very good list to keep handy, if you memorize this, it will definitely help you if you're a non-native speaker or if you just started learning English. But the more you read, the more you'll be able to listen and tell, okay, I need to use an infinitive after this, or I need to use a gerund after this. Okay. So that brings us to the end of today's session, mistakes that you shouldn't make. I'll keep coming up with more of these. Only and only if you let me know that this was helpful for you. If you like the video, show good response and I will come up with more such videos, because I have a good list of mistakes that are commonly made and I really want to help you out with that, okay? Another thing, please don't forget to fill out the form. You see, there's a lot to take care of. If you try to do it all by yourself, there are things that you will miss out on. So make sure you're getting expert guidance. You're getting it for free. So all you have to do is fill out the form, do it. Alright, it's going to be very helpful, and do not forget to subscribe to the channel, like this video, share it with as many friends as possible, be a helpful person, come on. And also follow us on Telegram and all our social media so that you don't miss out on updates. I will see you very soon. Take care and bye-bye.